Welcome to the Thrive With Us podcast. I am Nick Jones.
I'm Nicole.
And today we are going to talk a little bit about having a relationship and running a business.
Together.
We know just about everything there is to know about. So let's jump into it. This episode is sponsored by Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken. That doesn't exist.
Home of the 3-piece tendy.
He's not here, but we thank them for their sponsorship. Anywho.
Can you pass me my stress car? Okay, there we go.
It's going to be one of those, huh?
I have major ADHD. If I don't have something in my hand, I'm like picking the skin off my fingers. So
if I put that in my hand, I will rip it apart.
One of the wheels is about to fall off.
Yeah, that was me.
Oh, thanks.
So today we're going to talk about having a business and being in a relationship, something me and Nicole have
learned a lot
the hard way
by doing.
and
Yes.
the not so hard way. So yeah, let's get into it. I forgot my notepad because that's what I do. Again, ADHD. Shout out to all those ADHD people. But
I have actually in my Amazon cart a purchase that I've been wanting to purchase, but then the ADHD hit, and it's
there's a lot of half.
It's little ADHD fidget toys.
Which
is funny.
There's a hole in our wall that oh yeah, we got to turn the light on. There's a hole in our wall that stay with me.
Let there be light.
Cool. Now my whole lighting setup's messed up. There's a hole in our wall where we had a leak, and I cut a massive hole, and I just left it because ADHD left. But
yeah, and it's like over our nice, like we have like a bathtub. It's just a vibe, and then there's this huge hole above it.
Hole in our roof leak, which I need to call somebody about. And at the time, it started like bubbling in the paint, so I just freaking tore it. I just got a drywall saw and opened it up and put a towel in there, and it's just been sitting up there ever since. Anywho, let's talk about ADHD. We ADHD the ADHD together. But so we get a lot of questions about having a relationship, being in a relationship.
That's on.
That's fine. I don't think you can hear.
Okay.
And having a business. So I would say to start off, one of my biggest recommendations would be that it's hard. It's hard. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And relationships in general are really hard. And for those out there that aren't in a relationship, of course, it's something that I cherish and I love. And I think that a lot of people think that it's, like you get married happily ever after. But actually, that's when the real work begins. Because you're always going to be pouring into your relationship. Always, always, always. You're always going to be growing. Your partner's going to be growing. You guys are going to be evolving together.
I think it's always really...
And if you're not, and if you're like in your comfort zone, and it's just, that's where so many bad things happen within relationships. It's never like this big thing that it's always just like in those quiet moments where people start to slowly drift apart. And I feel like the comfort zone is always, the danger zone in relationships. Even though that sounds like, oh, I want to be comfortable, and, but it's always pouring into yourself, and it's
I would agree.
Complicated.
And I think that exactly what you touched on is like, we all watch movies as kids. Like, I can't remember any good Disney movies.
Well,
Snow
all
White
the princess, like all the princess ones where it's like the prince comes in and then the movie cuts to a happily ever after scene and no one knows what happens afterwards.
And we all see the internet where there's like this couple that's like running along the beach and everything's good. It always cracks me up when like we'll be talking to our team and we're like, yeah, me and Nicole fight. Oh yeah. We still actively fight. I think that's part of a relationship, but
I think it's really healthy to have disagreements and arguments.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Fight, right?
As long as you can let the ego down and let it go past, right?
And you guys are able to, or were able to work it out, right? when you don't ever come to an agreement and then you just walk away and sweep it under the rug, that's when the tension and animosity builds, and that's where things go wrong. But it's like, especially if you have kids, or for us team members, right? Because we don't have kids, but when they can see that you disagree on something and you're able to work through it and not blow up, not, scream and yell at each other and cuss and throw things. When you're able to just completely work through it, that is freaking amazing. Like, I think that a lot of kids don't see that. They just see like the argument piece, or they see like the quiet moments where the parents aren't agreeing on something, and then they're just like, oh, we don't want to fight in front of the kids, so let's just be quiet. And then it's like, they feel that. They feel it, know?
And I think, and as far as business goes, because that's really what we're gearing this towards, we will probably do multiple ones on relationships. We've been through a lot in our time, and it's not easy. Like Nicole said, I think a big part of it is letting your ego down, especially within a business setting. We see so many, I look at, so we have two different separate parts, right? We're partners in our business. We're business partners, but we're also partners in life
partners,
obviously.
Yeah.
And those are two separate entities. They're not, but they are mixed. So it's very complex. I think people say like, oh, keep work at work. I get where that comes from. However, in my experience, that is fairly impossible.
I think that is very important if one person is constantly bringing home a lot of negativity and stress and pain, and they're constantly just, that's all they're talking about, and then if the partner isn't involved in the business, then of course they're just getting dumped on, right? Which isn't a healthy thing. But at the end of the day, for any entrepreneur, it's a commitment. It's a lifestyle. It's not just like leave work at work. It's coming home with you. You're thinking about it when you're in bed. You're thinking about it when you wake up. You're always thinking about it.
Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day, every night, all the time. And they say like, oh yeah, this is why it's important to like what you do. But as far as relationships go, what would be, being that me and you are obviously been doing this a while, we've been through some real tough times, especially because of the business. What kind of solid, usable, mechanical advice would you give to somebody?
For someone's so there's multiple things here, because like I know there's a lot of people who like want to do a business with their partner, right? And I know for me personally, I've talked to a handful of people in our shop auto repair community of like the part. Normally it's the wife that's thinking about joining the husband in the auto repair industry, right? And that's such a hard decision. It's such a hard decision to make, but it's definitely not one that you can make overnight. It's something that you have to really think on. And I think it's also hard because I'm only speaking to one person, right? When I'm like giving this advice, I'm not speaking to both. And it's like, for me, what I look for is like open-mindedness. Are you open-minded? Are you like willing to get vulnerable with your partner? Because
so you're talking about lacking ego.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing.
And does your partner have an issue with that, right? Which obviously is an issue in relationships in general, but are you guys able to get through like regular life situations together? Or do you guys clam up and then just let it fester away under the rug?
And I think so early in our journey of like really growing our business and Nicole kind of coming on board, because she really came on board like fully in 2018, but she was doing after work stuff. So in the beginning, it was pretty easy because Nicole would, she was more doing the books and stuff, and it wasn't like,
yeah, I wasn't in there in the day to day. I was just coming there after work, and if that, I would work from home too, but I would just come in after work and then just like go in the back room and do the books by myself.
Yeah. So as we grew and she found her own voice and leadership, that's where we started to have issues, really.
And my own passions within the industry.
Yeah. And so as she kind of got into that, there became this weird time in my personal, and I can only tell it from my experience, but she had a lot of resentment toward me. And I hear that a lot in like people with relationships that we mentor. The resentment builds up, right? Like the woman, generally, it could be male or female, but it's mostly the woman feels like the man doesn't want to allow her to be who she can be. Maybe that's social norms. Maybe that's cultural. I don't know. I think it's ego. I always think the ego. You're going to notice it throughout these whole podcasts. The ego is the biggest thing for me. For me, when Nicole came on board and kind of wanted to do that stuff, I feel like I'm going to kind of play this out, so in 2018, she kind of came on board. 2019, she started like realizing, hey.
That's when we joined our coaching group and it got a lot of guidance.
And we had a woman coach, and I felt like she wanted to do things. So between 2018 and 2019, there was a lot of resentment you held toward me. And in my eyes.
Yeah, there was a lot of resentment.
And in my eyes, it was a lot of it had to do with your inability, like your inaction, and then my.
Well, I can share that piece.
Definitely.
I'm
just going to share
what was
my
going
point
on
of
in
view.
my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So from my point of view, it was your inaction. So you would be like, you didn't let me do that. You didn't let me do that. And then it was my inability to let go, and I think that works together to create a really toxic environment really fast. And then as I started to realize the things that and I'm just telling it from my experience, I'd like to hear your side of it. But from my point of view, as you started to realize your own voice, that you could do those things instead of just like trying to get me to do those things, that's when everything kind of shifted, along with my mindset of, you would tell me like, the vendors don't treat me the same as you. You would tell me, as a woman, when I'm in the front office, they look for me. And part of it's because, I was.
You had established relationships.
Yeah, but there's a lot of it that was. And that's what the excuse I told myself was, oh, I've just been here and she hasn't. So blah, 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 which you had, but just in the back room. I think, and I'm sure this is going to get deeper and deeper episodes, but the sexism in our industry is really difficult to overcome, and it caused actually fighting between you and I. I didn't think it was real until I started noticing it.
And when I said I want to share because I'm so passionate about it, like I've been through this whole journey where I'm just like, God, I'm so excited to talk about it because for so long it was pain, right? It was so painful for me. It was like I was trying to suppress you because and it's funny because it was like this weird situation where
I felt that.
It was this weird situation where I also wanted to be invisible, but I wanted, I wanted more credit but then I also didn't want to be seen at the same time. It was just like, I didn't know what I wanted, but I didn't like that no one acknowledged me, I guess. And like anything I was doing in the business, like I was completely invisible. And every time I did something that was really hard within the business, everyone would be like, oh my God, Nick, you did such a great job at this.
And then I would be like, stop telling me because she's going to kill me later.
Yeah, like after I started taking it out on you. Yeah. But I feel like before we get there, I feel like when I first entered the industry, I think, and especially like we joined the coaching group, I feel like I was like, I'm very analytical, right? So I saw these people, our mentors, that were like, they're doing it this way. And they have, they're able to have this successful, like, flourishing business. And we're doing it this way. And it's struggling and, painful and lots of tears and blood. So I'm like, I want to do what they're doing, Yeah. But
success leaves clues.
Yeah. Were working so heavily in the day-to-day and I wasn't. So I was able to like see that really clearly. So I kind of came in like a wrecking ball. Like we needed to change A, B, C, D, E. Like I was trying to I wanted to like implement everything. And I think that that's also where we had a hard time because you saw it a totally different way. And then I just kind of came in like, all right, we're flipping this bus upside down, and and even when I didn't fully understand how, like the technicians worked and how they,
you didn't have the hands-on. So I'm like, wait, hold on, we can't do this.
We were both on like opposite sides of the spectrum, and then we slowly over the years like came together, obviously, and that's when we started growing.
And that goes to my first like piece of mechanical advice, like doable advice, actionable advice, which is assign roles. Like you have to set, just like if you had a partner, you don't get in a partnership in a business. I mean, some people do, and not assign exactly what you're going to do, because that eliminates so much of the headache. Otherwise you have all these expectations for each other. You have, she's supposed to do that. He's supposed to do that. All of a sudden you have like 100 things like that. A lot of animosity, a lot of anger. There's already so much emotion involved in business. I know they say keep emotion out of business. Bullshit. Sorry. If you don't have an emotional business, I say you're not in your business, right? I get where it comes from though, as far as hard decisions and everything. However, I feel like the biggest piece of advice I would say for a couple starting in a business is assign yourself roles just as you would a business partner. Very specific outline. We sat down and we wrote them down. We actually need to redo that. That's something on our list.
Yeah, because it changes.
It does. And
over the years, things when you start to grow, we start to add more people that take over a lot of this stuff. So over the years you do have to adjust, and as you go.
And I got so hung up on if I do marketing, then can she not look at it? No, there's within reason. Obviously, we're all going just as you lead a team, we're all going to this same North Star. So we're not naive to think that, Nicole doesn't help me on some stuff. I help her on others, but it's just really important because I think expectations are what create animosity. If you expect, if I covertly expect Nicole to do the payroll, but we haven't talked about it, and then one week she's like, you know what? Then she does the same thing to me, right? Nick never does the payroll. I'm going to let him do it. All of a sudden, we're in a massive fight.
No one gets paid.
Well, I'm just using an example, but I think that assigning the roles very clearly is a big piece. I would put that as my number one bit of advice. And I think to go back what you said, which is if you're going to go into business with someone you're in a relationship, be ready for it to change your relationship. It's not going to be the same. Our relationship was a lot different when Nicole was a groomer and I came home from work. We didn't see each other all day. We spent a lot of time together, and that might sound like a dream to some, but it cannot be, right? I think you would agree.
It has everything in life, but it has its own set of pros and cons, right?
So, and I would say that
where we have to actually, normally with relationships, you have to be mindful about spending time together, when we have to also be mindful of spending time in solitude and alone or with friends, and also spending more quality time together as opposed to at midnight talking about the business and then it, going sideways because then it gets heated.
There's a good quote somewhere, and it's like, you can spend a lot of time together, but it actually isn't.
Yeah, it was Vanessa Van Edwards. Yeah, she said her and her husband spend a lot of time talking together, but they don't spend a lot of quality time. It's not quality. They're talking about their businesses that they're running.
So what would you have any other, what are your other?
So
we went from 2019. I feel like things started to,
I think trust is huge, right? So in our situation, it was you were running the day to day, right? I was completely not involved in the day to day. I was doing books, which was a very small amount of, data entry because of how small the business was in the beginning. Then I went,
3 technicians.
I quit my grooming job, and and that was I was running my own business. I had so much independence, and it was my expertise and everything. And then I came over to the automotive industry, and there was a period of time where you were my teacher, and
that's a good. Sorry.
You're my teacher. And that was a very toxic time.
So for everyone out there, I can be a little bit overwhelming to somebody, and I am very passionate about what I do. And so these are things I've learned about myself over the years. But at that point, I did not know that. So that would cause a lot of animosity.
This goes back to setting roles, right? Setting roles and having trust in one another. For us, there was a lot of things that you were doing that I ended up taking over. And I think even the things that you weren't doing, there were times where I didn't do them at your speed or at your pace, or, I didn't do it the exact same way that you would have done it. So that really bothered you. And I remember you ended up like having to reach out to other shop owners, and because you couldn't get over that. And I'm like, we ended up getting in a huge argument that lasted weeks. Like it kept coming back up.
I don't remember that at all.
We suppressed it.
My brain.
And then it would just come back up, right? And then you reached out to someone in our coaching group.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And he gave you the advice of like, you have to trust them. If they're gonna fail, you have to let them fail. Like
that's what I just wrote down in my notebook. Letting them fail, so important. Just like you do with your leadership. If you have a business and you put someone in command, let's say you get you're growing like we were, 3 techs, 4 techs, whatever your business is. You get 5, cooks or whatever, and you put somebody in leadership, and then you go, that's not the way to do that. That's not the way to do that. Oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. All of a sudden, they're not leadership anymore. That's a puppet. That's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But that's what I was trying to do to you. And that's what I tried to do to our early employees too. And that's a whole other episode. But letting your partner fail is hard. But it's so important. And that's where it comes to assigning roles. Like we assign the role, Nicole does HR or whatever. Like, if I see something that's going to be detrimental, like, oh my God, we're going to lose our business over, I might say something. Otherwise, you got to let it go. You got to let it go.
Yeah, and it's okay. We were just talking about this with, or at the conference, like, it's okay to challenge each other, right? Like, we're business partners. Like, it's okay for both of us to sit in on the marketing calls or to sit in on the, financials calls. And there's always, one person that heads that and leads it, but it's okay for the other people to challenge it if they see an issue. But at the end of the day, like, this is my expertise. You don't see that, it's one of those things you have to trust.
You have to
trust, and you have to be okay with them failing.
And I totally started this episode off with saying ego on purpose, because your ego wants to step in and, let's say, like, for example, I had been, training service advisors, right or wrong. I'd been doing it for, 5 years before you came along and were like, hey, we should change how we train service advisors. So when you started doing that, it's like, that hurts your ego, right? I've done this before. I know what this is. Oh God, I hate that.
Yeah.
I know. But that's
you don't know what
you're
you're talking about.
Yeah, because I've been in the business longer than you. Guess what? Hold on. Sorry. Big point. Guess what? The people who haven't been in the business sometimes have the best insight, because you get in that day-to-day grind and that you're stuck in it, and all of a sudden you think the way you've been doing, that's the number one killer of small business, is you think I used to hate this when I heard technicians says, I've been doing that for years. Okay, you've been doing it wrong for years. Or maybe there's a better way. Years ago, we were driving cars with no AC and that barely ran down the road 35 miles an hour.
It's crazy, because I was just talking to Spencer last night about, Spencer's your brother's brother. He has a landscaping business that is 2 years old now. And he was just sharing a story about how he was doing a whole landscape project for someone that was a retired landscaper, and he was nervous because he was like, this guy knows everything, and this is and that, and then he's like, you know what, this is awesome, like this is going to be a learning experience for me, and then he was taking in all the things that he was telling him, and he learned a different way how to do something that he thought he had nailed down, and he thought he was so good at it. And then he allowed himself to take in the guy's advice, and he ended up being way more efficient and way better. But it's just that is such a hard trait for someone to have. And I know that he's going to take his business so far because he has that mindset, and he's just humble, and he's
teachable.
He's teachable. Yeah. He's willing to listen.
Ego. Ego is the enemy. There's a book by Ryan Holiday, if I can recommend it. It's called Ego is the Enemy. I've only read half of it because I have ADHD. I'm just kidding. I think I read the whole thing. I just can't remember. But it is so powerful. You're always fighting that. There's also another book. I'm just going to drop some books out there for everyone. Leaders are readers. So if you want to be better in life, always be reading. And I listen, not read, but whatever medium works for you. Extreme Ownership, written by a Navy SEAL. My favorite book. You're like smiling at me because you know I'm obsessed with it. And it's just so funny because this buff, like, you know, you would think testosterone-filled, ego-filled guy. Literally the whole book is about don't let your ego get you killed in a battlefield, but in business, that works out. Highly recommend it. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And then Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. But
yeah, I feel like it always comes down to that, right?
It
like
always does.
Being teachable.
We're fighting our negative ego.
And especially in the relationships too. Like that's, oh my God, that's so important. And also too, when things need to be addressed and talked about, but you know, we all know deep down, we all know when we're in a high state of emotion or our partner is, pick a different time. Like let's sleep on it and talk about it tomorrow. Because it's like, I have this, it took me a long time to realize that. And then like, still I'd be like, oh, but I just want to vomit it out really quick and just hash it out right now because I can't wait, you know, but it always ends up blowing up in your face.
And they say when you're in a high level emotion or anxiety state, your ego is the biggest. And that's absolutely true. You know, things that we've learned over the years, again, back to like mechanical things you can pick. Okay. So when me and Nicole were younger, we would get into a fight. And if you look at a fight on a curve, let's say we're looking at a diagram, they would just go straight up. We'd both meet in the middle and just shoot it to the sky until usually one of us left. I'm a lever. I like to just like dip. Or, you know, we would like, I don't even know how it just wouldn't, it would just turn so bad. Mm-hmm. So
I used to be a throw things, slam doors.
I've thrown things too.
Holes in the wall.
Remember I threw a whole cup of tea at the wall one time?
I feel like I taught you that.
I mean, when you get mad, so mad, and the person who can get you the maddest is, or the angriest,
the person that you love the most.
Loves the most, mm-hmm. Yep. They can take, Nicole can get me, if she wanted to get me mad right now, she could in 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But I think the important part is that we would do that, and then we learned over time to separate when something like that happens, and this is just stupid advice. It's just stupid easy.
It always is, right?
But it's like, just admit that you're wrong. Even if you aren't, even if you don't feel it, just fucking admit it. Yep, I'm wrong. Done, you know? And people have different, another book I'd recommend is I think it's called The 5 Love Languages. It really explains how people feel.
There's this one by Don Miguel. It's like the 7 effective relationship tasks. I don't know.
You butchered
it's
that.
It's the 7
hardcore.
Something. 7 relationship something.
I'll find it in my books. Again, we're going to keep, you know, it's so funny how
that was a really big one.
You know,
and the 4 agreements too. One of the agreements was never take anything personally. Whenever someone's lashing out at you, and there's a balance, right? Because you obviously don't want to be someone's punching bag, but never take anything personally. When you have an upset customer or your partner's upset, it's always because, I mean, the way that they like lash out at you, you know, even if you are like in a calm state and you're like, okay, they're overreacting, instead of like matching their energy, you just have grace for them and know that it's just something that they're dealing with internally in that moment, you know?
And that's the thing, is having grace and realizing how you're going to blow up and how that's going and stopping it before it gets too bad. I think that what we've mastered, because I think about, okay, we went through like 2020 and that changed a lot. And there's a big reason that changed a lot. And we'll talk about that in a future episode. But let's just say life gave me a little check, a little, hey, you don't live forever. You're taking a lot for granted. Life's giving you those lessons. You got to look for them. Mine was hard not to see. But you know, when we went through that, and again, we'll go over that in a future episode, but I had a pretty major health problem that made me realize what was important. We'll just leave it at that. And I remember at that point, we didn't fight for the next 6 months. Now, why does it take that for two people who love each other to be nice to each other? Why is that? The reason it is, I'm asking a rhetorical question, it's because we got programmed wrong, right? We learned how our parents told us how to, and this is not a shout on my parents, but they
parents in general
taught us how to fix our emotions, right? There's a lot of talk about like emotional regulation and stuff, or they didn't. And so as we grow older, we have to learn these things about ourselves. Being self-aware is so huge. Learning the ego, realizing that, hey, when I'm pissed about Nicole tells me that I'm being overbearing, this is a common argument we get into because I can just be like, ah! Like a nightmare. And I know that, but when she says it, it hits my ego, and then my ego responds. All of a sudden, we're both into an argument, but as I've grown older, I can think about what's my end goal here? I'm going to lose somebody I love. I'm going to lose time with somebody I love based solely on the fact that I need to be right. What the fuck? How
Get the last word
fuck
in.
am I going to what? And you know, I see that so often in relationships. It's like tit for tat. We used to do that all the time. I would, again, I'm just going to give a few like, you know, small stories, but you know, I would do the dishes and then I'm like, okay, Nicole's going to do them next time. This is in my head. I didn't say shit to anybody. And then when she didn't, it was like, okay, why didn't you do the dishes? I did them last time. What the fuck? But I never said anything. Now I'm mad. Over what?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Aren't you supposed to be serving each other in a relationship?
With that too. Yeah.
Oh, I know, and I still do, but worked on it a ton. And I just think the self-awareness within that is so. It's all about self-awareness. And
I think
lack
it
of
always
ego.
comes down to self-awareness, and something that I always tell people. And I mean, I feel like there's so many things to learn within being in a relationship that carries over to being in a business partnership, right?
Yeah.
Married or not, but self-awareness and leading by example. And someone asked me, like, what's the best piece of advice you could give someone, you know, for wanting to be in a relationship, or like, you know, maybe starting to have issues in a relationship. And to me, it's self-awareness is the biggest thing. Self-awareness, what can you do better to show up stronger for your partner? And not like, because I think we all tend to just constantly find the faults. Every little, he left a piece of trash. His socks are out. Oh my God, the toothpaste is all the way
never done
over.
any of that.
The toothpaste in the tube is in the weird spot. And
I've never done that either.
or he uses my shower towel and just takes off with it. And now I have no shower towel.
We can stop now.
You know, like, but what the hell am I doing? Like, okay, I did this. There's a lot of trash on the counter for me. You know, like there's so many things that you're just deflecting all these things on your partner because it's easier than looking in within yourself. And like, oh, you know, Nick's not that affectionate. Oh, he doesn't buy me flowers. Oh, he doesn't, you know, well,
Right.
like,
this
what
is
have I
feeling
done?
like a personal attack at this
What
point.
what have I done to show him any of that? Like, do I even care about his love language? What am I doing to put in to show up strong for my partner? And then it kind of hit me like, oh, okay. Whoa.
And here lies within the biggest piece of understanding that I've had within the last 5 years of my life. And here it is. It's, you cannot change other people. All you can change is yourself.
Mm-hmm. Lead by example, and then it's contagious, right?
And just think about that for a second. You cannot change other people. You cannot. You can only change yourself.
Influence.
And you really think about that. How much animosity in the world? How much animosity in the world is there? That's probably not the right way to say that. Because of people wanting other people to change. It's huge. Oh, that guy cut me off. Oh my God. Blah, 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 blah. I can't teach somebody to use their blinker. I can't. Yeah, it kind of makes me mad. Whatever. I can't change them. You know what I can do? I can change myself. I can not get upset when that happens. You know what that does for my day? A lot, because you only get so much energy in your day. You're every day you're like a little battery. You got to recharge it every night. So you're going to waste some of that battery on an angry, or an angry customer, let's say, or a spouse that leaves their toothpaste out. You can't change them. All you can do is change yourself. So like in our house, if Nicole decides to, she just named off everything I do wrong. 10 years. I've been exposed. But if she's like, you know what, I really want to fix that. She doesn't show up and go, Nick, you need to put the laundry away. You need to do the towels. That's what we used to do, right? Instead, she doesn't touch my laundry, or she doesn't have to clean up what I did. She just overall cleans the house, keeps herself thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, shit, I'm dirty. I gotta fix that. And then I do it. She just did it last night, actually. And then I put all my clothes away.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, and that goes for in business too, because this is supposed to be a business, and we kind of got hung up on all the relationship stuff. But you see people on your team, you got to be the change you want to see. You can't tell somebody to be clean and be the dirtiest guy in the room. You can't tell somebody to have, hey, you drink a lot after work, and maybe that's where your money's going, or your happiness. So I'll be there at the bar with you. You can't do that.
Learning to communicate too with your partner.
Communication's everything.
There are times where one of us might fall into a situation where they aren't really holding, their end of things at the house or even the business. Like they're slacking in their duties that they're doing. And instead, sometimes like leading by example doesn't work. And you have to have that conversation with them, that calm, cordial conversation.
Sorry.
In a calm state. And there's a way that you can really piss someone off really fast by being like, Nick, why are you doing this? I feel like you're putting everything on me. I'm doing all the chores. Or
how do you think the reaction is going to be?
Yeah, exactly. Like really
we do
learning,
it all the time.
Really learning like how to,
communicate.
Communicate and respect each other. And it's the same in business with team members.
And it's the same when you're in business with your relationship. So I think this kind of got a lot on the relationship side, but it's important because without all those things, it's kind of like if you go to start up a business, but you don't have finances and you don't
super
have
important.
Leadership, and you don't have you can do it. I mean, we did it.
If your home life is in shambles, and this goes for people that aren't in partnership together in business, you're going to have a really hard time running your business successfully if you have this really dark section of your life that is just in shambles. It's nearly impossible because, like you said, all your mental energy is going towards all those negative things, and the stress and all the fights and the arguments. You don't have any brain space left to focus on your business.
One of our mentors told me one time, I'm working to be the same person in every room I go to. Again, one of the biggest pieces, I've just been lucky to have so many mentors or just be able to hear people. I listen to a lot of stuff. That was huge for me because whether it be people pleasing, which I've struggled with, anger, which I've struggled with, like anything you're going to run into, if you're the same person everywhere, it's much easier. If you're one person, and this goes for talking behind people's back, or if we get somebody and somebody starts to gossip with me, I'm just like, should we go address that with them? And you're usually like, well, no, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Well, I'm done with that. Because I want to be the same person everywhere. I want you to trust me behind your back, in front of your back, on your roof, on the ground. I don't care. I'm the same human everywhere. And, albeit, sure, when you get home, get in your underwear and, joke around a little more maybe than in a professional setting. But, I mean, overall, your core person. Too many people are trying to be a chameleon, and that will destroy your leadership. Nobody wants to follow somebody who's fake. Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that, actually, not to get too off topic, but I did struggle with I had a lot of versions of myself.
Me too.
Like I used to
That's why that was so powerful for me.
Yeah. I used to work for this older lady, and she was like in her 80s, and she was very like,
controlling,
uppity, and like judgmental. I just felt this very judgmental vibe. So whenever I'd go to her house, I'd like take my nose ring out, and like I never like wanted to wear shorts because I thought it was too like flashy for like her generation. I don't know. I tried to become a different person around her, even though she never like asked me to do any of that, you know? And then I was a different person at work with my clients, you know, just this.
And then at home,
I was this angry beast.
Because and that's it's so freeing to not only be an honest person, like as far as like, oh, I don't tell lies, but just honest.
You like meet all the versions of yourself together slowly. Like you're working on yourself to where you don't have these anger issues anymore, and you're figuring out how to manage your emotions. And then you're also being okay with wearing your nose ring and showing your tattoos and wearing shorts in front of an old lady, like stupid little insecurities that I had, you know? And then I slowly, I just got my life together, and I just have this one, and I don't have any more like secrets from my past because I've aired them out. David Goggins always says that's why he like shares his story, like, because, you know, the more I share, the more like, you know, like less control people have over me.
I know. I remember when like we were younger in the business, I was always afraid like my brother was going to tell some story about me getting drunk or something. It's like, listen, I've drank, I've smoked pot, I've done all sorts of stuff, just like everyone has. I'm just a human, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and try to act like, what? Sorry. No. And it's like, you know, driven without a license. I really, you know, I will happily tell anybody any of the mistakes I made, hopefully so they don't have to make the same ones. But I think we're all in this mix of, and that's terrifying, right? Like not, at least I struggle with that, not being yourself. But back on the relationship side, I think that we've talked a lot about, you know, our struggles, but I want to give people some advice. Like I want to give them, we've learned so much. We are experts at this. I would consider us high-level experts.
I wanted to touch on something that we talked about earlier about when I first came in, we joined ShopFix, the coaching group. For one, great piece of advice for any entrepreneur, but couples, is always have a mentor. I think having like a counselor or therapist too, because some sort of third party that can help you work through issues.
So they can tell you when you're not right.
So
and their spouse.
In our coaching group, it was really helpful to have, you know, in the business, when one person's so hard saying something, you know, on the other side of the spectrum that you're saying, like it's so nice to have that coach to kind of just like mediate things. And one thing I wanted to touch on was, you know, for a long time, we didn't have a vision or a goal or anything. And when we joined our coaching group, they really encouraged us to figure that out. And once we got on the same page as to like where we were going with the company and, you know, like the different things we were going to change and like why we were going to change them, everything became so much easier because we were always focused on that goal, that vision. So like when one person was acting, you know, doing something that wasn't going to take us to our vision,
acting a fool,
it was very apparent that, you know, that needed to be addressed.
I like that.
Yeah, and like with the thing with like me coming in, and I remember one of the things that really stuck out to me was you were very against having the technicians write their own estimates because you were a technician and you thought that the technicians would hate it and that it would like you just didn't want to do it.
I was against coupons too.
Yeah, coupons.
I was against everything.
Yeah, but that was a hard one, right? Because we were like, I was like, well, we got to do it because ShopFix is saying that, you know, it's the way to go and all this stuff. And I think that once we figured out like, okay, we want to be like Aaron or Ashley, our mentors, right? So we have to like be open to trying these things. And if they don't work, like we have to give it a solid amount of time to try it out, you know? It's going to be hard. But then on the
other end, you were probably like, well, Nick knows about technicians, so maybe I should trust him, you know? And that goes back to...
Well, and I also had like really low self-confidence. So I was just like, you know, I feel like I didn't have like that strong of a voice back then. And
but that's when the third party is helpful, like you said. I think that's good advice.
Yeah, because I was all about coupons. And I'm like, oh, I always like all the dog food that we used to buy, you know, when I worked at PetSmart.
Coupons just bring shitty customers.
Yeah.
And then
bottom feeders.
Coupons bring shitty customers. Meanwhile, I'm on fucking Amazon looking for a damn code to buy a, you know, kitchen sink
Yeah.
or something. Everybody wants a discount. Nobody doesn't,
But yeah, I think that's a big piece is like making sure you guys are on the same train, on the right track, going
That's
the same
huge.
direction.
And I think that goes back to communication, that base, everything we're going to talk about is always about the basics, man. It's communication. If you don't communicate that crap, how many times, I know I've talked to a ton of males. I know you talk to more females. It's just typically how it goes. And it's like, oh, she just doesn't understand this. She doesn't understand that. She just wants to do this. It's like, are you guys talking about any of this stuff? Or are you just telling me, because you have to talk this out and I think that's the problem is always the ego, right? Because a male who has done this business knows better and doesn't want to take advice from a female or a different partner that is like new to it. And that is such a fucking mistake, because how is anything new invented? It's not by the person that's been doing it for 300 years. It's the person who's new. Mm-hmm. You had a fresh mind. Mm-hmm. And I fought that for a long time. Again, ego is just the biggest thing. If I was going to give a piece of advice, I keep going back to this ego thing, but be okay to admit when you're wrong. It's okay. It's okay. We're all wrong. I actually would rather be wrong more often, because it means that we're learning. Be okay with it. I know it's tough. I say that now, but when Nicole struck a chord in my deep anger soul, I'm like, no, she's wrong. But if you're just okay with it and you admit it, what harm does it do? Really think about it. And also, always think about the big picture. Like I said, don't let someone die. Don't let some tragic situation make you, have a loving relationship with someone, mm-hmm. make you care, make you have gratitude. Because, when you're staring death down the barrel, everything comes real clear. I tried to write about it in a journal when that event happened, and it really was hard. I didn't know what to write, because love is something that is so much deeper than all this shit we're talking about. And if another piece of advice I would give is, some people are not meant to be business partners and relationship partners. Now, if you're putting down your other partner to make yourself feel better, that's not what I mean, because mm-hmm. that happens a lot too. And I see a lot of women like, oh, I'm just going to leave the shop because, Bobby won't let me. He doesn't want to let me in. Bullshit. Then Bobby's a weak human. That is a weak excuse for a male.
Yeah.
A male actually empowers their partner. You don't say, they can't figure this out. They're not made for this. I just want to speak to all the males out there. Guess mm-hmm. what? Y'all are weak. If you think that a shop or your business needs to be you, if your name's on the wall and I've done this forever and they don't understand, and you are weak. Look yourself in the mirror. Mm-hmm. You're weak. You're afraid. You're scared. Let them in. What's the worst that happens? Hey, I'm going to go off on a damn rant, but hey, I married this woman because I respect her decisions and her understanding of life, and we get along, but, oh, you can't tell me what to do in business. What the fuck? Are you serious? How many times does that happen? I hear you talking to women all the time where they're like, he just wants the space in the business, blah, blah, blah. That's toxic male ego. Get it out the fuck out of here. And the thing is... And you see it on the internet. I'm sorry, I don't want to keep cutting you off, but you see it on the internet where it's like, the male is this and the female is that. Bullshit. A female can run a better business than a male any day. It just depends on skill. It has nothing to do with male or female. There's one of the people I look up to most is Kathy Bissell, because she runs an awesome vacuum business of all things, but also runs a cool dog rescue. She's a woman. What's up? There's so many good examples, but male ego has suppressed it forever. So get that weak shit out your fucking brain. It's intimidating, right? For a lot of, not a lot, I don't even know. It's intimidating for men that are struggling with their insecurities. Weak men. And big egos. It's very intimidating when their wife comes in and tells them that coupons work, or, hey, we should be nice to our employees, or what was the other? Oh, technicians should quote. But this is examples for us, right? But whatever it is in your business.
And I've seen that happen on the female side too. So it's not just men. I have.
It's toxic ego, but it's more, in my opinion, it is way more. And one argument that I've heard, or one thing that I've heard within like marriage couples in our industry is, I've heard the question be asked, well, whose original dream was it? Which I think is bullshit, because I've dedicated my entire life to this industry. If you and I are having problems and someone said, well, whose initial passion was this? Oh, Nick's. Okay, well then Nicole, you need to step away. What the
fuck? No, I'm not doing that, because we are going to work together and figure this out. That is the shittiest
piece of advice I've ever heard.
Yeah, and I will say that if you in this moment are not willing to go to therapy with your partner, don't start a business. Problem. Don't start a business with them, because
you have too much ego.
You have to be, and you shouldn't even start a business to begin with, to be honest, because you have to be vulnerable. You absolutely have to be. That's one of the number one key ingredients.
And self-aware. And if you're not willing to look yourself, which honestly, all therapists do is just, I was just talking to someone else about this. All they do is fucking ask you the question you already knew back, and you just talk to yourself, which is honestly great. I'm not talking bad.
And it's not like the therapist doesn't should on you, right? Should, SHOULD, which partners do that, right? And that was another one of my things that I wanted to bring up was you can't should on your partner. Nick, you should do that. Hey, Nick, you should do the dishes. Hey, Nick, you should fill out this report by Monday. Like that word should is a cuss word in our relationship. We don't should on each other.
Yeah. I again, have fallen on that.
We have recommendations and suggestions.
Sword, not cross. Sorry. I've fallen on that sword before, many a time. I think I tend to always want to help when I shouldn't. It comes from a good place, and that's another thing is sometimes you got to remember that when your partner is shitting on you, don't shit on each other. Get it? It's like a weird funny joke. Sometimes they're coming from a good place, so you don't have to attack them, but you just got to these are conversations you have when things are calm, so that you have these tools when things go awry that you can go back down from them. I think it's so funny because so many people think that Nicole and I just never fight. We're the best of friends. Oh my God, we still fight all the time, and we've been through probably the worst fights. I think that's why we're here, and I think we are really good, best of friends. I would hope for, but it's never without problems. It's not some magical fucking fairyland. I think I see that with a lot of the younger crowd. Like they think they're gonna you get in a relationship and everything's cool for like the first 6 months. It's real easy. Everything's new, romantic, new, all that kind of stuff. You're excited about each other, but then that shit wears off, and then all of a sudden you guys are sitting there with your fucking underwear and one of you is farting and you're watching TV and they didn't put the laundry away or they stole your towel and
things all over the sea.
Things get real, but that's a real relationship. I think there's more. You have to be in love with the person's substance, their soul, but
not just their And I was gonna say, what was I gonna say, Nick? So many things. I should have brought a notebook because I have so many things in my head that I want to start talking about. But we were just talking about, it's not happily ever after.
It's not magic that you see on the movies. It's just like everything else on the internet,
Okay. It came back. So it's hard, right? Because there are a lot of relationships out there where they might be really toxic and it might be better to end things. And I can't.
Tough one.
Yeah. And, so when people come to me for advice, all I can do is, share with them what I would do, which is I always focus on myself and I always encourage like a third party, right? And a lot of the times I hear my partner doesn't want to go. My partner refuses to go. And that is really hard. And I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe it's them that they really don't want to go and hash it out and work on it. But it's really hard when one person, when they're on different wavelengths, different pages, right? One person's very closed off and it refuses to go and like because that's
We've
just
been through situations like that, though.
that's just proving that there's like that person doesn't want to nurture that relationship.
I would say to someone like that, then work on yourself as hard as you possibly can. Now, if things are like toxic, like
abuse or cheating,
then that's a whole other situation. And honestly, I'm not really one to speak hugely on that.
But I like to touch on that because I don't have experience, right, with that, because we've always we've always both been very open-minded. And of course, we've gone through phases where, you know, I mean, going to therapy is hard. Like, you know, you can agree on going, but then who's going to make the appointment?
Fighting every single day, getting home
or leaving, right? And breaking up. But guess what? Then you're going to get into another relationship and you're going to have the exact same problems.
That's why I recommended working on yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because I see so many people.
Every relationship's easy. If you think that you're going to leave this relationship, or every relationship is hard, not easy.
Yeah.
If you think you're going to leave this relationship and then the next one's going to be rainbows and butterflies, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, they're all rough. And I think that goes for everything. Work on yourself.
Yeah.
There's a reason why all the people that I would consider successful in the world say it and teach it.
For sure. I wanted to touch on one more thing, and this has to do with business and relationship. For our industry, at least specifically, there was a time where you and I were working in the day-to-day together. And
that was rough.
That's probably going to happen for when you're initially starting a business. You're going to be very hands-on. But just know that is a very, very hard phase to go through. Being in the day-to-day, right next to each other, going through all the things together in a very stressful situation. Of course, you are going to get in an argument, right? And if you can't afford it, there's times where people can't afford it and they're like, oh, I don't have the money to step out and hire someone. Have a game plan. Have a game plan set up, a timeline of, okay, we're going to do this for 3 months and then we're going to save up X amount of money and we're going to hire this person in 3 months. Yeah, because if you don't set the game plan, you are going to destroy your relationship and your business.
Some people can do that. They can work together really well. We can't. We do not work day to day well together. I think some of it comes from assigning roles, though. I think if you were to, actually, I don't think I know, if you were to, if me and you were to go back in, if we assigned roles, it would get a lot easier. And that's why communication and assigning roles is super important. But for me and Nicole, we both are.
In our situation, in our industry, even with roles in the day-to-day, it's hard.
That's what I was going to say.
It is very hard. We need separation. Yeah.
And we're
structure.
As you can tell when we're battling to say the same thing, I think that we're both so strong that it's it's hard for both of us to be in a relationship. But I recognize that be in a relationship and work in a business. And I think there's no right or there's no fucking black and white answer for this crap. We're just giving you what we know, and you could take what you wish and leave what you don't. And I think I have a ton to say more on it, but we wanted to keep it in an hour spot. We're at 57 minutes here.
Time flies. We actually were planning on doing 30 minutes.
We were, but I knew that wasn't going to happen because, yeah. So stay tuned. We have a ton of knowledge that we've procured over the years as far as relationships, business, leadership. They all intertwine. Like Jim Rohn says, everything is all together. So with that, unless you have any other
nope, that was all my fire.
I think we went over some really, really good aspects, and I hope it helps somebody out there.
In summary, what is it? It's self-awareness, lose the ego.
Ego is the enemy. Assign yourself some roles.
Assign roles, and also just freaking support your partner. Look inward. Lead by example, but show up and support your partner.
Treat every day like someone told you that you were going to die in 6 months. Mm-hmm. Wake up. I literally wake. God, I'm just going to go off on it.
Or your partner's going to die.
I wake up every day thinking about death, and it's not a negative thing. It gives me so much gratitude because it's the most. It's the only thing we have. The only thing that we have that's just constantly ticking away is time, but we don't know how much we have. I know how much money we have. I know everything else, but I don't know. I'm spending money, but I don't know how much I have. So keep that in mind every day. Wake up. I'll leave with this. One of my favorite little parable stories is, this guy says, "Hey, would you like $5 million?" Of course, yes. I would absolutely love $5 million. I'll just give it to you. I just have one thing in return. The guy's like, "Well, what is it?" Well, I can give you $5 million today, but you just you can't wake up tomorrow. And the guy's like, "Well, of course not." And then he says, "Well, then isn't every day worth $5 million? Why are you not treating it like that?" And you could use that with any amount. You could use, if I give you $500 billion, but you can't wake up tomorrow, you're going to take it. And I've had people go, "Oh yeah, I would. I'll just give it to my family." Whatever. Really, the biggest gift we've all been given is life itself. And don't let it slap you in the face to tell you that it's limited. And don't let that hurt you. Don't let that make you scared. It's not scary. We're all going to die. It's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't want to die either, just like everyone else, but I'm not scared of it. So with that, I would leave you, unless Nicole has something to say.
I would just say, like I said, about being in a partnership, life partnership and business partnership. It's not easy. It's the hardest thing that I've endured, but it's the most rewarding. And I think for people, it seems that the grass is always greener. So before we worked together, it was like, it would be so cool if we worked together. And then when we started working together, I'm like, oh my God, I want to do something just to myself. Yeah. And, I think that you just have to, self-awareness is huge. Every time you want to
it's literally everything. Quit worrying about
create
everyone
that
else.
Structure in your relationship and in your business, and support each other and have self-awareness. Every time you find yourself nitpicking all the things that your partner's doing, whether it's in the business or at home, check yourself. Look inward and check yourself.
Have some gratitude, which helps everything, really. Mm-hmm. It's the great equalizer.
Yeah, exactly.
Alrighty.
It's literally the cure to everything to life. It's the key to life is gratitude.
Am I angry because my chicken sandwich isn't done in 10 minutes when they told me 10 minutes? Gratitude. At least I have food.
Mm-hmm.
Am I angry because I just lost my house because, I didn't pay my bill correctly or whatever? Gratitude, honestly. Well, at least I have the opportunity to restart. At least I'm in America. I'm not in America. I can literally pull that shit out anywhere, and I think it's super important. Anywho, we'll keep dragging on for 3 hours afterward. Stay tuned for some other episodes of a lot of wisdom that Nicole and I have procured over the years. Again,
and we're still continuing to learn every day.
No, we know everything. Just kidding. Anywho, we would like to thank Ralph's Crispy Crunchy Chicken. We got to stop at the joke. Anywho, I would like to thank everyone for listening. We do really appreciate it. It is hard to make these, but I think we've procured so much information. I'd love to give it out.
Amen.
Drop a comment or a like or whatever you're listening on, please. If you could, that would be awesome. We'd really appreciate it. And thanks again.
Peace.